Now we are here for the review of Manchester United against West Bromwich Albion. We've won. What a win. What a day. Another fantastic performance from Manchester United.
Oh, mate.
Surely we're going to win the league, Alex.
Should do, yeah. I mean, after that performance,
3 points.
why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't we be winning the league?
That was pretty shit, really, wasn't it?
Boring.
As far as a win goes, is that about as bad as it can feel?
Yeah, I think so. I think because West Brom are really bad. Like, we weren't good today, but they didn't even threaten us at all, really, did they?
They almost had a penalty, West Brom. The first half obviously finished 0-0 at half-time. We went in and it just sort of felt like we've seen this before. We've seen this performance. It's 0-0 again at half-time. We've made a couple of chances. Martial missed a bit of a sitter. But other than that, we didn't even have many chances, let alone miss many. And you just sort of thought, half-time, you sat there thinking, it's another one of those performances where we don't really make many chances here.
No, and that's the thing about teams that sit back. I don't think West Brom really sat back today. That's not what their game was. But any team that is a bit defensive-minded manages to close us down the right. We do look really, really poor. I think it happened again today. I said in the end of the watch-along there, I don't like Matic and Fred together. I think McTominay and Fred kind of work, but Matic in that team without a Pogba next to him, without maybe went for Donny and Bruno next to him, that kind of three. I think I just don't like him in there. I don't like it in there. We look flat, and Bruno didn't have his best of games. He didn't really create much. I think he was forcing a lot of things, and I think that we looked off the pace. Mata didn't look great. The whole front, to be honest, the whole team looked poor, looked off the pace, which I said at the start of the game, we had 5 players in that starting 11 that didn't go on international break. Never mind, didn't really play. Tellers didn't really play. He's had a lot of travelling. Donny van der Beek didn't really travel, didn't really play too much as well. Maguire managed to get a game off. He only played 2 of the games, I think, because of his suspension. And you kind of think that this team should be pretty fresh. We should be able to come into this game with, Matic hasn't played, Fred hasn't played. We should be able to come out and steamroll a team like West Brom. We didn't. We just looked flat, and you can't use the excuse of we played loads of games, because we've not. Some of them players have had 10 days off.
What's crap as well is that you could just predict it.
Yep.
Like, no, I don't. There was. I said 2-0 was my prediction, but I thought it's going to be a scrappy game. It's going to be a cagey game. We've not won at home so far this season, so there's that hurdle to get over on top of the fact that we've not really been great this season at all. But it's sort of, West Brom, who were one of the worst teams in the league, maybe the worst team in the league, because Sheffield United, who were below them, I think they still are. At least they had last season where you go, we know Sheffield United can do a little bit. Yeah. They've just had a bad start. But West Brom, who probably, like I said, are the worst team in the league, we looked like, there was almost a feeling of, we're going to win at some point, so it doesn't matter how shit we are first half. Second half, they were a bit better, there were a bit more movement. We sort of played the ball a little bit better. But even then, we had the penalty, and after they'd already had a penalty ruled out due to VAR, which I think was right, but we had the penalty, Bruno missed it, we scored it, and after that, the game just turned into this weird, stretched out. West Brom's defenders never get out. Yep. We weren't getting out, or our defenders weren't. Like, sort of the line between the two defenses was like 60 yards. Where West Brom were like, we're not coming out. United, we're not pushing out. And we had like 3 attackers trying to pass the ball to each other, none of whom looked like they were capable of putting a pass together. It's just this weird schoolyard, no one's really asked about winning game. And luckily, our players who weren't asked about winning are just naturally a bit better than their players who weren't asked about winning. It just was so lifeless. It
was, and it's you don't know where that comes from. Is that from the international break? Is there just a bit of, was there a bit of nervousness about it in the players where they hadn't won at home, and this was a game they should win? The expectations were high, and I said I think that the first goal, if Martial scores that goal in, I think it was about the 30th minute, 25th minute, whatever it was, if scores that chance, I think it's a completely different game. I think we cruised to that victory. I think we score a couple of goals. I think you see a bit more, but you could see you've got Marcus Rashford, and there's rumours and there's bits that I don't think he's fully fit, and he didn't look it particularly. No. Martial, I think he looked sharp in some occasions. I think the touch towards the end, you saw how the quality he's got, but he's missing that bit of confidence. I think he needs that goal. We kind of thought that the penalty he got against Istanbul would be enough, but it doesn't seem to be that. He needs a goal in open play. He needs something to get him going. And then even when Cavani come on, he's someone that looks like he's a 35-year-old striker. He looks like an older striker that's not quite up to the speed of things yet. I don't know. It just.
And the thing with Martial is, right, like you're allowed to go through a bit of a tough patch. This is the first time as a United player where he's been the man who's expected to get the goals and he's not quite getting them. Like last season was, one of his first seasons where you're like, right, you're the number 9, and he got loads of goals. What was it, 24 goals, 25 goals he got in the end? Great return. But then this season is the first time where he's gone, you're still the number 9, you're playing whenever you're fit, and he's actually not performing, which you're allowed to have as a striker. Yep. But the problem is when Rashford is half injured and he's not looking good, Bruno today didn't look great, although, you'll probably see the stats and he'll have made 2 or 3 chances and all that stuff like he always does. But we all could see from watching that game, it wasn't his best game. Mata looked pretty anonymous. You didn't really see much of Mata. It's just, it's not Martial's fault because Rashford was poor, Bruno was poor, but they were all poor. Yep. And at some point, it's good to have Cavani knocking about where you can say, maybe take a bit of the pressure off Martial, let him play this game, let him play that game. But, you wouldn't necessarily trust Cavani starting and playing 90 minutes week in, week out until Martial gets his form back.
No, I don't. It's a weird one with Cavani. I'm surprised he's not started a game yet. I think that he needs to now. I think that we need to maybe change things up a little bit. I think that whether that's take Rashford out of the team maybe or put Martial on the left, give him a bit of a break or whatever it is. I think that needs to happen. I think that'll happen in midweek, and I'm hoping it does. But yeah, I just think that the Martial thing, I think there's a little bit of the service to him was poor today. I thought the midfield didn't control the game, didn't look. Matic gave the ball away a lot and looked a bit slow and a bit sluggish. And I think that you need to, I think, again, I'd like to have seen us gamble a bit today and maybe put Donny in there alongside Bruno or Donny in there alongside Matic and kind of said, look, let's go at these, let's put a few creative players in there. Let's get someone who's comfortable taking the ball off the back four and can spray it about a bit, because there wasn't any of that today. There was nothing progressing throughout the team. It was a lot of, we were trying to get the ball into Bruno and hope for the best. That was all it was. There wasn't any kind of link-up play whatsoever. I think everyone just looked really, really poor.
We're seeing the stats on the screen there. Obviously, I'm sure everyone's read them at home. But when you look at that, 17 shots, 7 on target, 63% possession, 2 clear chances, and we've won the game. Are we maybe being a little bit overly critical of the performance today? Obviously, again, anyone who watched that knows that wasn't vintage United. It wasn't even third or fourth level Manchester United. It was a poor performance. But you see the stats there. We dominated West Brom, really. We got the result we wanted. We were overcoming a few different hurdles of the international break players coming back. Our striker's going through a bit of a tricky time at the minute. Rashford seems to be injured. Bruno's had a poor game. And we haven't won at home all season, so we've got that sort of mental block or physical block as it's been so far. We had to overcome a few different things today. Hopefully, maybe we can push on after this now. Or are you worried that this is going to be how we play sort of going forward?
I hope not. I mean, there needs to be a reaction in midweek. There needs to be a performance in midweek now. I think that game became important after the last Istanbul performance. So I think the whole team needs a bit of a lift. And I'm hoping they take that of, look, this is the start of maybe a few games that they need to win Manchester United, because, we looked at it before and we looked a long way off. I think we're up to 9th now in the league. We were 14th at the start of the weekend, and that was like, that's it's a long way. But when you really looked at things, if results go our way and we win a couple of games here and there, we're only a couple of points behind.
Well, if we win our other game in hand on Chelsea, we're 2 points behind them.
Exactly, and things haven't really gone our way in terms of slow start to the season due to the coronavirus and us playing further in Europe. And then also what that also means is that we've got a game in hand on everyone, which I don't think is ever useful, ever, to have that game in hand. And I think it makes things look worse than they actually are. But I think that is kind of what sums up the performance today. It wasn't actually that bad, but you expect better. You expect United to come out and just deal with this team. Now, the other thing is, West Brom have, whilst they've not played great football, they got a point off Chelsea. They drew 3-3 with Chelsea, and they're going to cause upsets. And there's been upsets throughout the league. So every win at the moment is good. And I think that you only need a run of 4 or 5 games. Like Chelsea have. I think Chelsea have won their last 3 games, and all of a sudden... Yeah,
they were mid-table. Now they're almost top.
Now top of the league.
Yeah.
Same with Tottenham. Tottenham have won 4 games, the top of the league. And you're thinking, okay, they're pretty good. United need to go on a little mini run. They maybe need to win 4 or 5 in a row. and all of a sudden United might be in contention or closer to where they maybe should be in the league.
In contrast to that as well, we are ahead of Arsenal, who beat us 2 weeks ago, who everyone's talking about, Arteta's changed the culture of this club. We're ahead of Arsenal. We're also ahead of Manchester City, who have lost again today.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying that, it's any great achievement being ahead of Arsenal, because we should be ahead of Arsenal. We're better than Arsenal. And also, if Man City are having a tough time, you don't want to be like, well, they're having a slightly worse time than our worst time. But like I said, some perspective is maybe due when, like I said, if we win our game in hand, we're 2 points off Chelsea, which we don't want to be 2 points off Chelsea, but it's not as bad as it seems. It feels like we've been fighting sort of relegation form, when actually we're only a game in hand win away from being touching distance to Chelsea.
Yeah, it's a different way of saying, the way that the media's kind of going on around City and saying, they're not quite where, they've had a tough start, they've had some injuries, this Aguero's not there and all this, and it's not quite working for them at the minute. They've lost they lost 3 games already this season, 4 games. For United to be above them, Ollie was going to get sacked last week.
Yeah, and after a horrific title defence last season, let's not forget, by City. Like, there's a lot of teams who are going through a difficult patch at the minute. City lost their title by 20 points, was it? Yeah. Which is just ridiculous. So they've had 18 months now of being a bit shit. It's not just new for them, but there's no talk of crisis at Man City, is there?
And that's it. That's the whole thing with United. Look, we were a little bit poor. We were poor today. I think we deserved to win. I think that it would have been nice if it had been a Martial goal or something like that. It hadn't come from a penalty. But look, it did come from a penalty. I think it's soft, but I think that's the way it's going now. I think the handball, that's how it goes. And then Bruno, like you mentioned, the watch along, has managed to miss 3 penalties but only really miss 1.
Yeah, that's a weird stat, isn't it, at the minute?
Yeah.
I don't think Bruno should come off penalties, because he's done it so consistently for the last 5 years of club football. Whereas I think he scored, was it 27 in 32?
Yeah, he scored a lot. I don't know. I think
his penalty percentage is very high, isn't it?
If you had someone there that is, confident on taking penalties and is a top penalty taker, I think if Paul Pogba was playing every week, I think there should be an argument that he takes it off him, because Paul Pogba wasn't a bad penalty taker.
No,
he scored a lot of penalties. The similar kind of stats, and then he went through that bit of a wobble at one point.
Which is the same wobble Bruno's going through now, but they happen to be when the goal is jumping off their line. Yeah. So that's saving him a bit, but that's the thing. Rashford's a decent penalty taker. Martial's a decent penalty taker. Pogba's a decent penalty taker. But statistically, Bruno's a world-class penalty taker, so it's understandable why he takes them.
It's a weird one. Bruno is the penalty taker, and I think it stays as it is. I don't think we should be like the Van Gaal philosophy is, when you miss one, you're back of the queue again, and then you keep rotating.
That's a proper under-10s way to do it.
That is a horrendous way of doing things.
You all get a chance. If you miss one, we're going to switch who it is every single time.
Because I think
was weird.
The one thing is that Bruno's missed those 2 penalties that had to be retaken, and he steps up and then scores straight after, which takes a bit of doing.
Takes some bollocks, doesn't it?
Yes.
Thought De Gea was man of the match. He made a vital save to keep us in it. A couple of good saves.
Man of the match.
Sam Johnson.
I don't know. Sam Johnson.
For United.
For United. De Gea was good today. Made a couple of good saves. I don't know.
It's almost hard calling a man of the match, because we just didn't really do anything.
It's hard calling a man of the match because he didn't keep. It wasn't like he was saving. He made 10. It's not like the Arsenal game a few seasons ago where he made 10 saves.
He had a couple of good saves.
He had a couple of good saves, and then it's hard to give the man of the match to anyone else because the rest of the team was so poor all the way through.
People saying, sorry, but you wouldn't defend Jose playing 2 in the pivot against West Brom. Why are you defending Ole every single time? Well,
I've not defended. I've said I don't. I've not. I haven't defended it. To be honest, I've said I don't. I think if we're doing the double pivot, I think it should be Fred McTominay. I think that's what works in there. I don't like Matic in there. I think if you're playing Nemanja Matic, play him as a number 6 and gamble a bit. At games like today, I think they should have started with Bruno and Van der Beek, or even put Mata alongside there and have another winger out there as well. We didn't need to play 2 defensive players.
We've seen
today.
it work with Paul Pogba in there as well last season.
Absolutely.
But obviously Pogba's not fit at the moment. I don't really understand why I do that. It's almost like he went, well, I'm playing Mata, and that's my sort of attacking risk for the day, so I'm going to play 2 holding. Because as we saw from this game today, no offence to West Brom, but they were like nothing. They had a couple of half decent chances, but they didn't really try to win.
No,
They pressed up a little bit, but that's not a team that you have to go, we need 2 holding midfielders here. And I agree with that comment in the sense that it was unnecessary today. But I think Ole thinks, well, I'm playing Mata, so there's my slow, attack-minded player who can't really press. That's the risk I'm taking. I'll play it safe with the midfielders.
And at the same time, about the 2 sitting, saying that you shouldn't be doing that. The one thing you want from your 2 sitting, especially when you're playing inside forwards or wingers that we've got, is that one of those needs to do the work going back. And there was a couple of times today, again, where Wan-Bissaka stood at the back post or had tucked in, and there was no one else, and there was 2 West Brom players. And that's where your midfielder needs to be filling in and stuff like that. So you kind of think, well, do you know what? If we are pushing forward, is that the job that Fred or Matic? Now, again, I think they're both left-footed. I don't quite like that either. I don't think that works in the midfield. I think you need someone on who...
Van Gaal was a big fan of that, wasn't he? Left-footed, left side, right-footed, right side.
And I think that... I don't know. I think it works better with Fred and McTominay. I don't think it works as well with Fred and Matic. And I don't know. Is that a little bit of Ollie's going, we play 4-2-3-1. That's how we play football. If we're playing with 4 at the back, we're going to do 2 in midfield, 3-1. That's what's going to happen. That's how it's going to work. Doesn't matter who's in the squad, that's what we're going to work towards. And maybe that is, do you know what? If this person pulls out, that's where you're going to go in, and that is the role you play. Whereas otherwise, you go in, some days you're going to have the 3 midfield, you're going to have to do a bit more defensively. Again, maybe it's if you play with a Van der Beek and Bruno, you've got to say to Bruno, you've got to do a bit more defensively. You've got to drop in a bit more. Maybe Ollie doesn't want that. Look, again, there's a lot of questions about it. I'd like to see us go back to the 3. I'd like to see us with the single pivot, if it's going to be Matic or McTominay. But these guys work on it and train every week, and obviously they think that this is the way that they should be doing it. And it's only 2 weeks ago we played Everton, and it was perfect.
Yeah, that's true.
And it worked really well.
Like the video. If you're glad that Man United beat Everton, it helps us out as well if you do like the video. So let's see if we can get to 500 likes. There were some strange selection choices for me. I thought playing Matic was a weird one. He was terrible against Istanbul. He didn't play against Everton. I think Fred and McTominay have looked good when they've started together. I know people will say that's a bit defensive. There's no real sort of creativity in those two, but they work together. We know they work together. They worked against Everton. They worked against PSG. We've seen that pairing work together. So to bring Matic in and go, right, now you're going to play, but you've got Fred next to you, who you're not used to playing with because they haven't really played together much recently. And we're going to have Matu's there, who's not got any legs, and it just was a weird selection to me.
Again, the only benefit to this, I think, is that we can then play Tuesday against Istanbul, and I can see us playing maybe McTominay, Pogba, Van der Beek as the 3 midfield, and you go, we've done a completely different midfield there. You've managed to rest players, get people back in, and we need to keep going in both competitions. We can't sack off the Champions League. I think if we'd have won the Istanbul game, there's a little bit more pressure off. But we need to keep doing that. So I think Ollie's doing that a little bit. I think he's rotating his squad, and I think that's probably why Fred and Matic played today, was that they didn't play international football. They hadn't travelled. I don't think it quite worked, but 3 points. 3 points is
and
3
Philip
points.
Glover with a bit of optimism in the comments says, we weren't good, but good teams find ways to win.
Yep.
Adam McCullough off camera.
We all said before the game that performance was important today.
He's saying that the performance was important today. We all said the performance was important today.
It was, and it wasn't
yeah,
good
but
enough.
obviously I wanted us to play better. I wanted us to look really good. Obviously I wanted us to win 4-0, score loads of goals, make loads of chances, but we didn't. We won the game, which is what we wanted to do. I think the performance was important. That's why we're not sat here. Look how great that was.
No.
Look at us. Look at our body language. Look at the
not great.
comments. Look at everything. It's clear that wasn't a vintage, fantastic. That's exactly what we wanted. Thumbs up performance. We were shit, but we won the game. So how pissed off can you be? We won the game. That's it.
You can't be.
Right, we're going to go now. Thanks, Cam. The fan cams are coming up with Adam. We've got Steve's review as well, and Ronaldo will be getting in on those as well. Thank you very much for joining us for the watch along and for the review. Man United have won, despite how it feels in here, despite how it feels in the chat. Manchester United have beat West Bromwich Albion 1-0. See you in a bit.
Head over to stretfordpaddock.bigcartel.com and check out the Paddock merch. And for a short time, you can get 20% off orders with 2 items or more using the code Paddock20. Go get on it.